Have you ever stood up too quickly and felt dizzy? Or had a moment where you forgot a simple word mid-sentence? Maybe you've chalked it up to age or fatigue. But what if I told you that moment might not have been just nothing? What if it was your brain trying to warn you that something far more serious just happened? It's called a silent stroke. And here's the terrifying truth. Most people who have one never even know it. There's no dramatic collapse, no slurred speech, no urgent trip to the ER, just a faint feeling that disappears within seconds. But the damage it leaves inside your brain, that stays, quietly growing, quietly weakening your memory, your balance, and your ability to live independently. Today, we're going to uncover the warning signs almost everyone ignores, how silent strokes feel when they actually happen, and why even your doctor may not mention it, unless you ask. And at the end of this video, I'm going to reveal the single most overlooked risk factor that could silently triple your chances of having one, without you even realizing it. So, if you care about staying independent in your 60s, 70s, or 80s, if you want to avoid the fate of millions who are slowly losing brain function each year, then don't look away. Don't pause this video. And whatever you do, don't skip the last few minutes, because that's where the truth that could protect your future is hiding. If you're watching this, and you're over 60, or if you care for someone who is, hit the like button to help more people see this message. And please subscribe, because next week's video could be the one that helps you, or someone you love, catch a warning sign in time. Now, let me introduce you to someone whose life was quietly altered by a stroke he didn't even feel. Part 1. George's story. The stroke he didn't know he had. George was 74. He was still sharp, still active. He played cards every Friday, walked his dog every morning, and read the newspaper without fail. He prided himself on staying mentally sharp and physically mobile, more than many men his age. But one morning, something felt off. He sat down for breakfast and suddenly forgot where he'd placed his coffee. Not unusual, he thought. Maybe he was just tired. Then, later that same day, he fumbled his words during a phone call with his daughter. He tried to say appointment, but it came out as app something. He laughed it off, blaming age or just a bad night's sleep. But over the next few days, George noticed he had trouble concentrating. He began forgetting where he put things. His left hand felt a little clumsy, just barely. Not enough to cause concern, but enough that he noticed. He never fainted. He never fell. There was no paralysis, no dramatic hospital visit, so he never mentioned it to anyone. 3 months later, during a routine checkup, George's doctor noticed some mild cognitive changes and recommended an MRI, just to rule things out. That's when they discovered it. George had suffered a silent stroke. A small area of his brain had been damaged by a lack of blood flow. It was too late to reverse, and he had never even known it happened. His life didn't change overnight, but that one silent episode became a tipping point. Small memory lapses became more frequent. His balance wasn't what it used to be, and his independence, once taken for granted, suddenly felt fragile. George's story isn't rare. It's happening to millions of seniors right now, without warning, without fanfare, and without anyone realizing it. And chances are, someone watching this, maybe even you, has already experienced a silent stroke and just didn't know it. That's why in the next part, we're going to explain exactly what a silent stroke is, how it differs from a full-blown stroke, and what's really happening inside the brain when it strikes. But before we continue, take a second and ask yourself, have you or someone you love ever felt that off feeling, forgetfulness, a moment of weakness, or a sudden confusion, only to brush it off? If that sounds familiar, stay with me. What you're about to learn could change everything. Part 2. What exactly is a silent stroke? So what is a silent stroke really? At first glance, it sounds like a contradiction. How can something as serious as a stroke happen silently? Here's the truth. A silent stroke is a type of ischemic stroke, just like the ones most people know about, the kind that cuts off blood flow to part of the brain. But instead of causing dramatic symptoms like paralysis or slurred speech, a silent stroke hits more subtly. It damages small areas of the brain that don't always trigger obvious symptoms, at least not right away. But silent doesn't mean harmless. Far from it. Inside your brain, even the tiniest loss of blood flow can destroy tissue. These areas of dead or damaged brain cells are called lesions, and with silent strokes, they often occur in regions responsible for memory, balance, emotional control, or even coordination. You may not notice the damage immediately, but your brain does. Think of it like this. If a regular stroke is like your car slamming into a wall, a silent stroke is like tiny cracks forming in the engine every time you drive. You might not see the damage, but over time it builds, and one day the whole system starts to break down. And here's the most alarming part. Many people don't have just one silent stroke. They have dozens, sometimes hundreds, each one chipping away at their brain function, silently. Silent strokes are often found during brain scans for other reasons. A person goes in for an unrelated checkup or memory test, and the MRI shows small, scattered spots, evidence of multiple past strokes they never knew about. These small, invisible attacks add up. They can cause subtle but growing memory problems, difficulty focusing, poor balance or shaky walking, sudden mood swings, and in time, a serious stroke that doesn't stay silent. Now, here's a question worth asking yourself. If these strokes are so dangerous, why don't more people know about them? That's exactly what we're going to break down next. Why silent strokes are so often missed, even by doctors, and how the early signs are easy to ignore until it's too late. And if you haven't subscribed yet, this is the time to do it. Because what we reveal in the next few minutes might just help you spot a life-altering event before it ever strikes. Part 3. Why silent strokes are so easy to miss. You might be wondering, if silent strokes are damaging the brain, why don't we feel them? Why doesn't the body sound an alarm? That's exactly the problem. Silent strokes don't happen with drama. There's no facial drooping, no speech slurring, no collapse that demands 911. Instead, they show up in ways that are easy to dismiss, especially if you're over 60. Let's look at what a silent stroke can actually feel like. You suddenly forget a word mid-sentence. It returns a few seconds later. You lose your balance for a moment and think, "That's odd?" Then keep walking. You misplace your keys again, and this time in the fridge. Your handwriting looks just slightly shakier than usual. You feel a flash of dizziness or brief confusion, then it's gone. Each of these moments feels small, explainable, forgettable. But in the brain, They might be the only warning sign that part of it just lost oxygen, and a few million brain cells died in silence. And here's where it gets worse. Even many primary care doctors don't catch silent strokes early. Why? Because unless you're already being treated for memory loss, Parkinson's, or serious balance issues, you're unlikely to get a brain MRI, especially if you don't report symptoms. And most people don't. Because, again, the symptoms feel like just aging. That's what makes silent strokes so dangerous. They don't interrupt your day like a major stroke would. They sneak past your radar. And by the time the damage shows up, months or even years later, it may be mistaken for dementia, aging, or fatigue. But this part is important. Silent strokes often strike before major strokes. They're not the end. They're the warning sign. And if you miss that sign, the next one might not be so silent. That's why in the next section, we'll walk through exactly who's at risk and how you can know if you're silently walking toward a brain event without even realizing it. But before we go there, I want to ask you something. Have you had any of those small moments lately? Have you brushed off memory slips or light dizziness because you thought they were normal? If this video is making you think twice, that's a good thing. Hit that subscribe button now, because what you're about to learn could help you stop a full stroke before it starts. Part 4. Who's at risk and why you might not know you are silent. Strokes don't just happen out of nowhere. They happen when certain risk factors quietly build up over time. And for many older adults, those risks are hiding in plain sight. Let's walk through the most common ones. See how many apply to you or someone you love. Risk Factor 1. High blood pressure. This is the #1 cause of both silent and major strokes. High blood pressure weakens blood vessels in the brain. Over time, those vessels can leak or get blocked, leading to tiny, unnoticed strokes. The dangerous part, you can feel perfectly fine, even while your blood pressure is silently rising. That's why it's often called the silent killer. Risk Factor 2. Type 2 diabetes. Diabetes doesn't just affect blood sugar. It damages your blood vessels too, including the tiny ones in your brain. Many people with diabetes develop microvascular disease, which can trigger silent strokes without warning. Risk Factor 3. High cholesterol. Too much bad cholesterol clogs arteries. When that happens in your brain, even a partial blockage can cut off oxygen to small regions, and that's when silent damage begins. Risk Factor 4. Smoking or exposure to smoke. Smoking makes your blood thicker and your vessels tighter. It's like pouring sludge through a garden hose. It strains everything and increases your risk. Risk Factor 5. Lack of physical activity. The brain thrives on blood flow. Sitting all day, every day, slows circulation, increases inflammation, and accelerates vascular aging. Even short walks, stretches, or light movement can reduce your risk significantly. Risk Factor 6. Age. Let's be honest, aging itself is a factor. After age 60, your body becomes more vulnerable to the kinds of small vessel damage that can trigger silent strokes. But age alone is not the cause. It's how we manage our habits, health, and awareness that makes the difference. Now, here's the kicker. Most people who suffer a silent stroke had no idea they were at risk. No pain, no warning, no clue anything was happening. Until months or years later, when memory starts to fade, balance becomes tricky, or motivation disappears. That's why it's so important to know your risk and act before symptoms appear. In the next part, we'll explore exactly how to detect a silent stroke, what tests can reveal the truth, and how to talk to your doctor so they take you seriously. Because if you catch it early, there's still time to slow it down or stop it entirely. If you haven't already, now's the time to subscribe. The next few minutes could be the difference between wondering and knowing what's going on inside your brain. Part 5. How to detect a silent stroke. Before it's too late. Here's the truth. Detecting a silent stroke isn't easy, but it is possible. And for many people, it starts with paying attention to the small things that don't feel right, even if they seem minor. Let's start with the gold standard. 1. Brain imaging, the only way to know for sure. A magnetic resonance imaging scan, MRI, is the most accurate way to detect a silent stroke. It can reveal small, damaged areas, called white matter lesions, that are often the only physical evidence a stroke ever occurred. Unlike a CT scan, which is commonly used for major stroke emergencies, an MRI can pick up those subtle changes, especially in the brain's deep tissue. But here's the problem. Most people don't get an MRI unless something obvious happens. Which brings us to the second key point. 2. Your doctor may not bring it up. Unless you do. Unless you report symptoms like confusion, imbalance, or memory issues, your physician might not recommend an MRI. That's why you need to speak up. Ask your doctor questions like, could I have had a silent stroke without knowing it? Is an MRI appropriate for me given my age and risk factors? How can we monitor my brain health proactively, not just reactively? Doctors are more likely to act when patients advocate for themselves. You don't need to panic. You need to be proactive. 3. Watch for behavioral clues. Even if you haven't had a scan, your body might still be trying to warn you. These are early signs that shouldn't be ignored. You're forgetting names, appointments, or familiar routes. More often, your handwriting looks different, shakier, smaller, uneven. You feel more irritable or anxious than usual. You sometimes drag one foot slightly when walking. Your thinking feels slower, like your brain is moving through fog. If these symptoms are new or getting worse, they're worth paying attention to. They could be signs that silent strokes are already impacting your brain. 4. Know your baseline and track it. Start writing down how you feel each week. Keep track of sleep, balance, memory, focus, and energy. If something begins to change, you'll be the first to spot it. And you'll have something concrete to show your doctor. Because here's the painful reality. By the time you feel the effects of a silent stroke, the damage has already happened. But if you catch the pattern early, through behavior, through imaging, or by asking the right questions, you still have power. You can slow down the decline. You can protect your independence. And in the next section, we'll show you how. We're going to walk through simple, powerful steps you can take today, starting with your diet, your habits, and a few daily changes that may protect your brain for years to come. So if you've been watching and thinking, "This sounds like me," don't stop here. You're closer than ever to understanding what's happening inside your own mind. If you're finding this helpful, share it with someone who may be quietly going through the same thing, and hit subscribe so you never miss the tools that could help you stay strong, sharp, and independent. Part 6. How to protect yourself from silent strokes. Starting today, the good news? While you can't undo a silent stroke that's already happened, you can take steps to protect your brain, restore function, and dramatically lower your risk of future strokes, silent or otherwise. Let's start with what you can do right now. 1. Clean up your diet for better blood flow. Your brain needs healthy, flexible blood vessels to stay sharp. The wrong foods stiffen and clog those vessels, cutting off the oxygen your brain depends on. Here's what helps. Add more leafy greens like spinach and kale. They're rich in vitamin K and folate, both essential for vascular health. Eat fatty fish like salmon twice a week. Omega-3s help reduce inflammation and improve circulation to the brain. Cut back on salt and sugar. Excess salt raises blood pressure, and sugar increases insulin resistance, both key stroke triggers. Drink more water. Dehydration thickens the blood and makes circulation harder, especially in aging bodies. 2. Move. Even just a little every day. You don't have to run marathons, but you do need to move. A 15-minute walk can improve blood pressure and brain oxygenation. Gentle stretching or chair yoga helps circulation and balance. If you're able, practice light coordination exercises like tapping your fingers or balancing on one foot. These actually stimulate brain activity and improve neural connection. 3. Sleep well, consistently. Poor sleep increases stroke risk. Aim for 7 to 8 hours a night. If you're waking up multiple times or snoring heavily, talk to your doctor about sleep apnea, another hidden stroke risk. 4. Manage stress before it manages you. Stress floods the body with hormones that raise blood pressure and constrict blood vessels. Try these calming habits. Deep breathing. Inhale 4 seconds. Exhale 6 seconds. Gratitude. Journaling. Write 3 things you're thankful for daily. Limit news or screen time before bed. Your brain isn't just a machine. It's deeply affected by how you live, think, and feel. 5. Get your numbers checked. Don't guess. Measure. Blood pressure. Ideally under 130/80 A1C for diabetes risk. Under 5.7% LDL cholesterol, the lower the better. Ask your doctor for your goal range, CRP, a marker of inflammation. If high, consider diet and supplement changes. Knowledge is power, and tracking your health gives you control. 6. Don't skip the appointments. Regular checkups are essential. Even if you feel fine, schedule annual wellness visits. And if you've noticed small changes in mood, memory, or movement, even if they seem silly, mention them. Those little things might be the early signs of something bigger. And finally, never assume it's just aging. Aging changes us, yes, but not all change is inevitable. Not all decline is normal, and not all damage is permanent. The steps you take today can preserve your mind, your memories, and your ability to live life the way you choose. In the final part, we'll recap everything and give you a simple action plan so you can start protecting your brain one day at a time. And if this video is resonating with you, now's the time to like, share, and subscribe, because silent strokes don't make noise, but this message can. Part 7. Your brain is talking. Are you listening? Let's take a moment to recap what you've just discovered. Silent strokes are not rare. They're not harmless. And they're not something to ignore just because you feel mostly fine. They're small, quiet attacks on the brain, stripping away memory, balance, focus, and independence, bit by bit. But here's what matters most. You are not powerless. You've learned what silent strokes feel like, those little moments we often brush off, why they're so commonly missed, even by doctors. The risk factors that quietly raise your chances, the tests that can reveal the truth, and most importantly, the steps you can take today to protect your brain. Because, here's the thing, your brain never stops communicating. It sends signals. It asks for help. It remembers how to heal, if you listen in time. So don't wait for a major event to force change. Don't wait for a fall, a hospital visit, or a diagnosis to make this real. You've already taken the first and most important step. You've informed yourself. That alone puts you ahead of most people. Now, take the next step. Talk to your doctor. Ask the hard questions. Take control of your daily choices, your food, your movement, your rest. Share this video with someone you love. You never know whose life you might change. And finally, don't leave without subscribing, because every week we break down vital topics like this, health threats that hide in plain sight, and the simple science-backed strategies to fight them. If you miss next week's video, you might miss the one thing that could protect your memory, your mobility, or even your life. Thank you for watching. Take care of your brain, because it takes care of everything else. We'll see you in the next video.